Light Program. Language Instruction Towards Excellence or LIGHT is a program of the University of the Philippines Los Baños College of Arts and Sciences in collaboration with the Graduate School. It was founded in 1993 as a part of the Language and Arts program and was eventually renamed as LIGHT in 2001. The LIGHT program caters to graduate students and students from foreign universities. It offers intensive English course for international graduate students designed to help them achieve the required standard of linguistic and communicative competence. For 150 hours, they will receive an intensive English tutorial for the entire semester, covering pronunciation improvement and oral presentation skills, reading and vocabulary, and grammar and academic writing. The program also offers English Plus course. This includes basic lessons in English. It focuses on conversational fluency and vocabulary enrichment and pronunciation improvement and oral presentation skills. For the international students, LIGHT not only provides knowledge and English communication skills, but also on the culture of the Philippines. In the previous years, the program was able to conduct Laguna cultural trips to introduce the students to the province's rich cultural heritage. The former students would also recall how they have learned the importance of the English language, improved their pronunciation, and experienced to use it practically as they were given the chance to have live conversations using the language. They have also appreciated the culture of the Philippines and are now more interested in getting to know more about our country. They have even made friends and relished how kind their professors are. LIGHT's pool of tutors is composed of faculty members from the Language Division and Communication Division of the Department of Humanities. Most of them have undergone a Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages training. LIGHT program was awarded UPLB's Outstanding Extension Program for helping UPLB international students attain the required linguistic competence to hurdle academic life in the university and beyond, as well as improve their respective social relationships and professional careers. Aside from the course offerings already mentioned, LIGHT could also provide lessons in business English, business correspondence, effective oral presentation reports, and writing. Tutorials are also offered for the following languages: English, Filipino, Nihongo, French, and Spanish. Tutorials other than these can be arranged with LIGHT, including other English examinations. As the transition to the online setup continues, LIGHT adapts to the remote mode of teaching and redesigning its courses amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. The program also conducts webinars as part of its initiative to provide public service to students within and outside UPLB. LIGHT aims to build more connections and to be able to provide its services online as we proceed to navigate through the virtual world. LIGHT program.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to today's webinar entitled Code Switching in Language Classes and Related Conversations. I am your host, Wayne Rivas, and on behalf of the LIGHT program team, we'd like to thank you for being here with us today. If you would be so kind to give us a heart or part to react so that we know you're here. I see Sir Angela's already chatted. He's watching from National Teachers College. Hello po. Feel free to chat where you're from as well so that we could greet you and give you a shout out if you want. I see the faces of our LIGHT program team. We have first and foremost the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, UPLB, and the manager of the LIGHT program, Dean Maribel Dionisio Sese. Thank you for being with us today po. Our LIGHT coordinator, Prof. Christina Dalia, and our LIGHT assistant coordinator, Prof. Gerard Eusebio. Feel free to turn on your cameras as well or send some heart reacts so we could feel each other's presence. For those who do not know us yet, the LIGHT program is an extension arm of the UPLB-CAS for delivering English language training to international students and exposing them to Philippine heritage and culture before they work on their studies in the university. In 2020, Light started to conduct webinars such as this in order to provide an online place for knowledge sharing and co-creation with different UPLB students, faculty, and staff. Well, with COVID-19 still being persistent, this webinar hopes to serve as a venue in fostering a conducive space for harnessing the potential of teachers, learners, and parents. If you want to get us know more, then head over to our official Facebook page at UPLB-CAS Lite program. Also, if you want to share your experience or thoughts on this webinar online, don't forget to use our official hashtag. That's hashtag UPLB-CAS Lite. Again, hashtag UPLB-CASLITE. All right, before anything else, we have a few general reminders. Number one, please observe respect and courtesy to everyone in the webinar at all times. Number two, kindly avoid making unrelated or unnecessary commentary in the chat box or using your microphone. Third one, please reserve your questions for the question and answer session after the lecture. And last but not least, to receive a certificate of participation, please fill out the evaluation form. The link will be shared at the at the end of the event through the chat box. Now, to start off our program, let us have our opening remarks to be given by our Dean and Light Programs Manager, Prof. Maribel L. Junicia Sese. Let's give her a round of applause, everyone.
Thank you, Wine. Okay, and thank you to all. Okay, good afternoon. Thank you to the Language Instruction Towards Excellence Program Coordinator and the College of Arts and Sciences Assistant Professor, Christine K. Adalia, for inviting me to be part of the present event that features a webinar on code switching in language classes and related conversations, to be delivered by our dear assistant professor in the language division of the Department of Humanities, Assistant Professor Precious Zara A. Anyoso. I was informed that the webinar aims to explore the practice of code switching by teachers and learners in language classes, particularly in English and Filipino, and related conversations. That this topic will be examined and parsed out in the context of social linguistic, language learning, and language teaching perspectives. Coming from the basic sciences, I won't profess to have a possible inkling on the essence and dynamics of today's subject matter. I must confess that the topic sounds quite abstruse and esoteric to me, apparently outlying my academic boundaries. Nevertheless, I feel certain that this topic is timely and relevant in the larger scheme of things in liberal arts education, particularly in language teaching or learning and related conversations. I congratulate those who currently comprise our LIGHT program, coordinator as well as the assistant coordinator, Gerard Eusebio, and those who collaborate with them, especially the faculty members of the Department of Humanities, in bringing to fore topics such as today's, which broaden the knowledge base and understanding of language studies liberal education, consistent with what LIGHT stands for. That is, language instruction towards excellence. I also congratulate those who take their time to participate in such undertakings, confident that their precious time and effort are well invested. I hope you will all continue to do so as we collectively endeavor to level up and broaden public engagements on topics that call for meaningful exchange of ideas, discussions, and conversations. I trust that you will find today's webinar interesting, instructive, and insightful. Thank you. May God bless us all always.
Thank you so much, Dean. We are so honored to have you here with us today. Thank you for taking the time to give our opening remarks. Now, for the moment, we are all excited for the lecture on code switching in language classes and related conversations. Our speaker for today is a faculty member of the Language Division, Department of Humanities, CAS UPLB, where she teaches language, communication, and scientific writing. She holds a bachelor's degree in communication arts major in speech communication, cum laude, from from UPLB and a master's degree in linguistics from UP Diliman. Her research interests include lexicography, translation, and sociolinguistics. Everyone, let's give a warm round of applause to Prof. Precious Sara A. Anyoso. Hi, Ma'am Prey.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so thank you very much, Wine, for the introduction. And thank you, of course, to the Light team, for organizing this webinar. Allow me also to thank you, our participants this afternoon, especially those who have been registered to this webinar since our original schedule last July. So ayan, salamat po. I'm glad that you still made it this afternoon. Okay. So I'll be sharing my screen now. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, I'm going to share with you about code switching today. Well, it actually took me a while before I finally decided, and I finally came up with this topic. And alam niyo po kung ano yung nakatulong din sa akin to decide on this. Ma-share ko lang po, no. I was actually drowned in a lot of emails from my students one day. It was last June, and it was the end of our semester that time. And I kept on reading and receiving emails from my students. Tapos, yung mga sinasabi nila something along the lines of, "Ma'am, good afternoon po. I would just like to ask po if I can do this po, or if I can do that na lang po." Something like that. No, so ganun po yung mga nare-receive ko ng mga emails. Okay, well, that's how I read their emails, but actually hindi ko po alam kung paano talaga nila sabihin yun, no, ano talaga yung tono. But yeah, so I came up with this, no. Can you speak English po? Perspectives on code switching in language classes and related conversations. So just for a little bit of a background pa. So during this time of the pandemic, we have discovered and developed so many ways of communicating with our teachers and with our students, no. We send emails every day, we chat, we text, we have our learning management systems like, for example, Google Classroom. So lumawak po yung classroom natin, no. Na-extend siya virtually. And so, yung mga tinatawag natin na classroom conversations, na-extend din siya, no, lumawak din. So I thought, sige, let's include all these related conversations that we have about our classes, including yung mga virtual or online conversations, kagaya nga po ng mga emails na natanggap ko from my students. Okay? So for this afternoon, I hope you don't mind if I code switch while I talk to you. So hayaan niyo po akong maging talking example nitong mga pag-uusapan natin for this afternoon. Okay po? Okay, so let's start from where we are. Ayan, so the mother tongue-based multilingual education, no, is being implemented as a program and policy of the Department of Education. Basically, it is the use of English and Filipino and the mother tongue for literacy and instruction, particularly for K-3 or yung kinder to grade 3. And then, of course, we know that pagdating or pag-akyat ng mga bata, no, in the higher grade levels, there are necessary adjustments, there are necessary transitions, kumbaga. Okay. But then, even before this was implemented, even before this was institutionalized, nanggaling na po tayo dun sa bilingual education policy, okay? Where we use English and Filipino as languages of instruction. So siguro 'no, kung hindi man po tayo umabot dun sa MTB-MLE as students, I am pretty sure we have experienced having subjects which are generally taught in English. So ano yung mga subjects na yun, 'di ba? It's math, it's science, and then of course, the English subject. And then there are subjects that are generally taught in Filipino, like Araling Panlipunan, 'di ba, in high school. And then nung elementary naman, we have HECASI, tama ba ako? I don't know if yun pa rin yung tawag, no? But it's Geografiya, Kasaysayan at Civica back then. And then from what I can recall, no, when I was in elementary, we also had EPP or Edukasyong, Pantahanan, at Pangkabuhayan. No? All these subjects were delivered in Filipino. Plus, of course, yung Filipino na subject mismo. Okay. So, in the college level naman, I believe, no, most of our subjects have been taught or are still being taught generally in English. But then yun nga, even dun sa bilingual education where we have English and Filipino, there's always the help of another language, an auxiliary language, no? And in Filipino, we call this wikang pantulong. Okay? So nagagamit pa rin. And malamang ito din talaga yung mother tongue ng mga bata or ng mga estudyante natin. That's what we use as the auxiliary language. Okay. So just to contextualize po, I hope it is already clear to us, no, that ang idea is whichever is the medium of instruction or the MOI of a particular class or subject, it is the language that is used in all the learning materials that that we make for our classes, and even yung outputs ng mga estudyante natin for assessment, no? But it's a different thing when we talk of the less formal, the oral discussions, instructions, and conversations that happen in class. Okay? So these conversations and discussions include those that happen online, kagaya nga nung sinabi ko kanina, like via email or even chat, for example. So, sabi ko nga kanina, di ba, high school and college students have been doing this since our shift to the online learning mode. So, parang ngayon na lang din po talaga bumabalik tayo sa face-to-face. Pero for the past 2 years, no, we've been emailing, we've been texting and chatting and, you know, doing all these communications online. Okay, but then if we set aside yung sinasabi natin ng mga formal and written class materials, the question is, how are the informal naman, no? The informal discussions and conversations delivered, especially in a class where the MOI is supposed to be English? So dito po sa UPLB, I'm handling a class which is called Wika 1 or Wika 1. It's Wika, Kultura at Lipunan. And palagi pong may isang part ng aming module where I ask my students kung ano yung wikang ginagamit nila sa kanilang mga majors, sa kanilang mga subjects. Okay. So tinanong ko po yung mga estudyante ko, and this is what they have to say. So ma-share ko lang po sa inyo, no. So I have this student who's taking BS Economics. So makikita niyo dito sa shinare niya. By the way, this is from Google Classroom. Sa klase po namin yan. So sabi ng estudyante ko, it's really a mix of Filipino and English. Okay? Pero specifically ang sinabi niya, English ang mga nakalagay sa module at mga kailangang sagutan. So meaning pati yung assessment English. Pero halong Filipino at English naman ang ginagamit pag kami ay nagtatalakayan. So sa economics, ganun daw. And then I have a student who's taking BS Electrical Engineering. So ang sabi naman niya dito, ito, English ang hinihinging wikang gamitin upang gawin ang mga nakatakdang gawain. So yung assessment pa rin, no, yung mga outputs na ginagawa nila sa class. Pero pagdating sa discussion ay English at Filipino ang ginagamit. So pareho. And then lastly, I have a student who's taking BS Biology. Ang sabi niya rin, Filipino at English ang ginagamit na wika sa pagtuturo ng mga lektura. Okay, so specifically English daw yung ginagamit sa module at magkahalo namang Filipino at English kapag meron silang mga lektura sa klase. And sa iba pa pong mga degree programs, halos pare-pareho naman yung kanilang na-i-share sa akin. So yeah, I believe this is also what happens, no, even in the high school and elementary levels. Siguro it's just that perhaps mas dominant yung English pa rin siguro. Because the difference is pagka elementary or high school yung mga bata, we kind of want our students to also practice using the language in those classes. Okay? Dun sa ganung stage. But then unlike in college kasi, somehow, no, meron tayong assumption or meron tayong expectation that they have already reached, a good level of English and Filipino competencies. So talagang ang focus natin yung content na nung classes, like economics, like engineering, like biology. Okay? So in these classes, no, the switching happens between the MOI, which happens to be English, and an auxiliary language. And apparently, ang nagagamit nila is Filipino. Okay? And yun nga, yung auxiliary language naman talaga, or yung wikang pantulong na tinatawag natin, it's really supposed to facilitate better understanding among our students. Kaya siguro talagang yun yung ginagamit natin when we discuss, no? Okay. All right. So the alternating between the medium of instruction and another language, yung sinasabi natin kanina, no? Basically is done to, number one, to repeat or to reiterate, no? To explain, to clarify. So it is indeed used as a teaching strategy. Dito pa lang makikita na natin yon, no? And then what else? Ginagamit din ng code switching to address deficits in the linguistic competence. So for example, when teachers see language as a barrier to the students' understanding, meaning for example, if you keep on using, say, English, especially kung gumagamit ka ng mga forms na hindi pa familiar sa mga estudyante, then they won't understand you, or they will find it hard, no, to understand the teacher. So we resort to using the auxiliary language. Okay? And it is also part of our experience that sometimes we see the auxiliary language as the best way to get our message across. Okay? So minsan sinasabi natin kasi we could not find the exact words, the exact phrases or sentences to express our thoughts. And this is not just for teachers, no? Even the students, diba? So na-experience din natin yan. Okay, so third, code switching, or yung alternating between the two languages is also used to address inattentiveness. There have been several studies saying that switching to a different language, or yes, code switching na nga, no, inside the classroom is also a way specifically for the teachers to address student inattentiveness. Kasi aside from the fact na they understand the auxiliary language better, since it is their mother tongue, they can actually relate to it more. Okay? So kumbaga, mas nakaka-capture yung attention ng ating mga learners when we use, no, their mother tongue or the language that they know. Okay. Now, I am sure you know a lot of other reasons why teachers tend to not use the medium of instruction purely in their classes. May kanya-kanya tayong mga reasons and motivations. But so dito nakikita natin, no, kino-combine natin yung medium of instruction dun sa auxiliary language, which again is most of the time yung mother tongue. Now, regardless of the age or level and the reasons kung bakit tayo nagko-code switch, this story becomes a little bit different pag ang pinag-uusapan na natin ay language classes, like English, like Filipino. Kasi in language classes, we have this goal of immersing the students with the language. Diba? We talk to them in English, even during the simplest conversations and instructions, we speak to them in English, no? Apart from, of course, what's already written in our class materials. And siguro mas nakikita natin to talaga, especially when we are in a class of, young learners or young kids. So mas nakikita natin yan. So the question is, what is the language that we use in our classes? Okay? Do we implement the English-only policy in our English classes? Ganun ba? Or bawal bang mag-Ingles ang mga bata kapag oras naman ng Filipino na subject? how do we implement these classroom language policies? Kasi iba't iba po yan, no? For example, do we just talk to the students using the medium of instruction, let's say English, and then, yeah, we encourage them to answer and to converse with us using English as well? Pwede yun. Or, do we correct and do we police the students when they, for example, slip in expressions or words na hindi naman galing dun sa target language? Ganun ba yung ginagawa natin? Or ganun ba yung ginagawa ng teachers natin, no? Or do we give them some sort of a punishment when they don't follow this policy? I don't know if this is still being done, but actually when I was in elementary, meron kaming ganong policy, no? Sinisingilan kami ng piso every time na nahuhuli kami, may nakakahuli sa amin na classmate namin na nagsasalita kami ng Tagalog kapag English time. And I think even kapag math time and science time. So yun, nakakaipon ang aming class fund dahil po sa pagtatagalog namin. But yeah, that is what happened sa experience ko. Okay. So how do we really use our languages in our language classes? Okay, there's this study by Borlongan, and it was revealed in the study that 11 out of 14 English language teachers code switch to Tagalog in their classes. Okay, so meron pong pag-aaral na ganon. And this study was on elementary English teachers in Metro Manila, where the mother tongue of most students is Tagalog. So nagko-code switch pala, teachers and students alike. Okay? So magpapakita po ako sa inyo ng ilang examples. Ayan. So kinuha ko po ito sa study ni Borlongan. So the first example is from the student, obviously. So sabi nung bata, uy, sit down nga eh. Okay, and then the rest, itong tatlo naman, are coming from the teacher. So sabi ni teacher, why is this with correction already? We haven't checked. But may mga check na to. Hindi pa tayo nag-check eh. Okay? Or sabi ulit ni teacher, hello, listen children, alam ko gutom na kayo. Or sabi din ni teacher, just raise your hand lang. Okay? So iba't ibang iba't ibang kinds or forms ng pagko-code switch both ng student and ng teacher. Okay. But then this does not happen only in the Tagalog regions, no? Hindi po ito sa mga Tagalog lamang, because there's a study by Osborne on high school English classes in the Ilocos region, where, of course, Ilocano is the mother tongue. So, ang sabi ni teacher doon, now, from the given example, what order is used? Anya nga order, anya nga way. Okay? By the way, pasensya na po kayo if I can't pronounce it or if I can't read it or say it the way native speakers do, no? Pero, ito po yung sinabi ng teacher. And yun nga, ito po ay sa high school English classes, no, na ang mother tongue ay Ilocano. Another example, so ibang wika naman, tingnan natin. This is from a high school English class in Zamboanga del Sur, where Cebuano naman yung is being spoken. Okay? So sabi ni teacher, the worm symbolizes problems. This line tells that if naatay problema, i-take nato ang problema. Then, dilita mag-control sa problema, maunay madaot sa atoa. Kindly read the last line. Okay, so code switching din, no? Nag-alternate yung English and also yung Cebuano nung teacher. Okay. So far, we've seen a few examples of teachers code switching in their English classes, showing us that really, ginagawa siya ng teachers. Okay, but later we'll have more from the students. Okay. So, this is the reality. No? This is what happens in our classes. So not only for the content subjects, but also for language subjects like English. So yes, we do practice code switching, and it is interesting to note, no, that despite code switching being viewed as by others, no, as corruption of English, it's corruption of Tagalog, it's corruption of Cebuano, Ilocano, and all these other languages involved. Here we are. Ginagamit naman din natin talaga sa language classes natin. Okay? So i-clarify po muna natin, no? I've been talking about code switching. Ano ba yung code switching? Okay. So according to Gumpers, ayan, it is the juxtaposition of passages of speech belonging to two different grammatical structures or systems within the same conversation. Okay. So itong sinasabi natin na juxtaposition of passages, it could be of different lengths. Okay? So there could be code switching of language from one sentence to another or within a single sentence. So pag gano'n naman, pag sa loob lang ng isang sentence, there are words or phrases in one language, tapos there are also words or phrases in another language. In fact, this is one way of classifying code switching, no? Whether it is intersentential, just like itong example natin ngayon, or intrasentential, meaning within the sentence. So itong example ko sa ngayon, no, you were absent yesterday, nagkasakit ka ba? Are you okay now? So it is parang English sentence and then Tagalog and then English. No? So intersentential po ito. Okay? So konting clarifications lang po muna kasi baka familiar kayo or baka naririnig nyo rin yung term na code mixing. Okay? Actually, code mixing is the term used by other scholars to refer to intrasentential code switching. Okay? Or yung code switching within a sentence. Tinatawag nilang code mixing. However, for the purpose of this webinar, so gamitin natin yung code switching as an umbrella term. So whether it is intersentential or intrasentential, umbrella term natin siya. Okay? And then another clarification then, when we say code switching, kasi this could be between languages. This could be between dialects or registers. Okay? Kasi yung sinasabi natin na code dun sa code switching, it refers to linguistic varieties. So hindi siya necessary na isang separate language. So pwedeng dialects. Ganyan. Okay? So, yan. So, meron tayong example ng intersentential. Now, I'm giving you another example. Okay. So, this is from my student ulit. So, this is a reply of my student to my comment on his work on Google Classroom. So, sabi niya, I will leave a comment na lang po ulit once I am finished. Okay. So, dito naman, makikita natin, it is intrasentential, no? Sa loob na nung pangungusap. And we see here the insertion of words na lang po ulit. Okay? Doon sa, actually, English naman talaga yung structure ng sentence. Okay? And yeah, other words na ini-insert natin, usually yung po, di ba, nga, naman, and other particles. Okay? So, last example so far, ayan. So, ito naman, this is also from my student, but this time, I got this from a Google Doc na ine-edit namin. So, we were exchanging comments there. And yeah, sabi ng student ko, mag-meet po kami on Tuesday after his lecture po to discuss anong methodology ang pwedeng gamitin. So, this is from my Engten class. It's writing of scientific papers. Okay, so kaiba dun sa mga previous examples, dito naman, we see on the word level, merong may paggamit na ng Tagalog and English, no? Yung mag-meet. So we see the use of the affix mag plus the verb meet, no? Which is in English, okay? And then yeah, of course, the insertion of po, okay? And yeah, of course, there are several other ways, no, that scholars have come up with to classify code switching aside from yung structure na tinitingnan natin ngayon. So it could also be based on the motivation or the cause, which we will be talking about in a while. Okay, so for this afternoon, we are going to explore 3 perspectives on code switching that happens specifically inside our language classes, whether virtual man yan or physical. So since our focus is in the context of language classes, hindi na po tayo magde-delve masyado doon sa linguistic and structural explanations on code switching, but rather we will be exploring the social linguistic perspective of code switching and hopefully answer the question, why do we do it? Okay, by discussing the social factors and motivations of code switching inside the classroom. Okay, next, we will explore code switching through the lens of language learning and explore how the practice affects language learning, no, in our classes. Okay, particularly because we are looking at code switching inside, our English classes or Filipino classes. So hopefully malaman natin nakakatulong ba talaga yung sa language learning itong linguistic practice na ito, and how. Okay? And then last is language teaching. Well, this is obviously related na rin naman doon sa language learning. Pero yun nga, mas nakatingin naman tayo dito sa teachers, no? Actually, itong language teaching part, dito tayo magko-conclude, dito tayo mag-wrap up ng discussion natin later. Okay? So ayan, samahan niyo po ako habang pinag-uusapan natin itong different perspectives on code switching. Okay. So let's start with the social factors and motivations of code switching inside the classroom. So magpo-focus po tayo ngayon doon sa interlocutors and the situation, no? So itong gagawin natin, itong pag-uusapan natin, this is actually a micro-level approach of looking into the social linguistics of code switching, because we focus on the main, well, I would say players, no? Main players in code switching. So kapag kasi macro level, titingnan na rin natin yung sociological and institutional categories doon sa linguistic community. But since I know that most of our participants this afternoon are either teachers or students, so doon po tayo magpo-focus. Okay? So yeah, what are the factors that motivate us to code switch inside the classroom? I have identified 3, which I will be sharing with you today. Okay, so first is the background of interlocutors or participants, basically, in the conversation, which is us, tayo po yun, teachers and students inside the classroom. But perhaps this could provide explanation more on the code switching practices of the teachers than the students. Okay, so yung mga teachers kasi, when we talk to our class, palagi tayong nagre-reflect. Can they understand me? Gets ba nila ako? Okay. And according to Giles' speech accommodation theory, we adjust our speech based on our addressee. Okay. And one particular basis is their level of understanding. So how do I make them understand me? What do teachers do? They code switch. Okay. Sige. So tingnan natin. Meron akong example ulit. Yan. So there was a study by Dinoy and colleagues on the perceptions of teachers towards code switching in classes, and this is what one of their respondents has to say. So sabi ng teacher, when you handle students who are generally speaking in Tausug, you try to use their language so that they would understand. Okay. Ang context kasi nito, multilingual yung classroom eh. There are students who speak Bisaya, who speak Tagalog, Tausug, Chavacano. So sa Zamboanga, they cater to multilingual learners. Okay? And I know sa ibang mga parts of the Philippines din ganito rin naman yung experience natin. So the teacher has to adjust, no? Since most of the students are speaking Tausug, there's an effort from the teacher to use the students' language, primarily because they recognize na most likely itong mga bata na to, they have different levels of understanding sa English. So, kailangan humanap ka ng common. And so, ang nangyayari, nagko-code switch yung teacher. So here, code switching is used to fit the proficiency of the students. So, paano nagko-code switch ngayon yung teacher? So, may example tayo. Okay, so sabi ni teacher, ayan, yes, teenagers nowadays. Now, what does the poem imply? So parang makikita natin dito, they're actually discussing a poem, di ba? May text na dinidiscuss. What do you understand about the poem? What is the general thought of the poem? Unsay inyong nasabdan sa tula? Unsay siya? Unsay kahulugan sa rose in the poem? Okay? So so this example is from the study of Manila, where the teacher switches from between Cebuano and English. So if you would look closely dito sa example na ito, actually inuulit lang naman ni teacher talaga yung sinasabi niya, di ba? But in different forms and switching between the two languages. Okay? So here, code switching becomes the teacher's way of making sure that they are understood. Same lang yung sinasabi niya, inuulit niya lang in a different code and in a different form. Okay? I have another example. So from the same study naman ito. So sabi ni teacher, what is the author's purpose in writing the story? What do you think is the author's purpose in writing it? unsa may tumong nga gisgulat ang istorya. Okay. Again, pasensya na po if I can't, hindi ko siya masabi the way native speakers would, no? But yeah, we see in this example that the teacher asks the same question 3 times, again, in different forms. And on the third time, it's in Cebuano. So when teachers do this, they can address both the students who we can say, no, have higher level of understanding in English, and also those with a relatively lower level. So pag ginagawa ito ng teacher, they are actually able to level that boundary between the two groups of students. Okay? So meaning to say, hindi na lang yung social factors or yung motivations for code switching ang nakikita natin ngayon. Because we also see ano yung nagagawa ng code switching. And from these examples nga, sabi natin, the teacher is able to level that boundary between the two groups of students na magkaiba yung level of understanding and the medium of instruction, which is English. Okay? So yeah, that's about the background of interlocutors. Now let's see the next one. The relationship. Okay, the relationship among the interlocutors. So this is still about us, no? Tayo pa rin ito, teachers and students. So ano ba yung dynamics ng student-teacher relationship? Sabi nga natin, there's social distance. Okay? There is social distance. So on the part of the student muna tayo ha, yung mga estudyante natin, they tend to insert po and other particles, no, to express politeness towards the teacher, even if they are speaking English. So nandiyan yung po, opo, minsan ginagawa pa nga natin yes po. Di ba po? Yan. So, ganito yung ginagawa natin, no? Actually, parang hindi lang din naman students, pati teachers, ginagawa din po, iyan. Okay. So, here's an interesting example from my student. Okay, this is part of an email. So, sabi ng estudyante ko, I am writing this letter po to ask for permission if it is possible po to submit yung requirement po today, tomorrow po. Okay, napakagalang po ng estudyante kung ito, no? But yeah, are we guilty of doing this? Ginagawa po ba natin ito? Kasi yun nga, feeling ko hindi lang naman estudyante but also teachers, no? Among teachers, ginagawa rin natin. And yeah, I actually observed this, especially during this pandemic, no? That our online communication has been really active, no? We always write emails, we text, we chat, and we would always find po, laging naka-insert sa iba't ibang parts ng sentence, no? Just like this one. Now, the thing is, for us Filipinos, or siguro sa mga Tagalog na lang specifically, because we are so used to this word expressing politeness, ang nangyayari, when we use a different language, let's say for example, English, parang we feel that it's too straightforward, parang it lacks politeness, especially kapag online or written yung communication. So this is what we do, okay? We code switch, we insert po everywhere, no, in the sentence, okay? And again, that is because of the social distance, no, between the student and the teacher. So again, ang nagiging motivation for code switching is our relationship, no, with yung student-teacher na relationship. So paano naman yung teacher? Okay, so since sabi natin kanina there's social distance between the student and the teacher, it still holds, ganun pa rin naman. But what becomes a possible motivation for teachers, for the teachers code switching, is now to bridge that social distance. Okay? To make the students somehow, alam mo yun, parang to feel more comfortable, to establish a common ground between them and the student, and that is the language, no? Yung language yung nakikita natin as the common ground. And especially nga kapag nasa isang multilingual classroom tayo, no? So we use the language that is common. So yung code switching ng teacher, it is not only for the students' understanding, no? But it is also to bridge the social distance nga between the student and the teacher. Also, according to the study of Dinoy and colleagues, when teachers code switch using the language of the students, parang the students feel that they are identified, that they are part of the class, no? parang hindi nila mafe-feel na alienated sila because they hear their teacher, no, someone they look up to, someone who is, the authority in the classroom, na nagsasalita ng language nila. So they feel identified, no? They establish a common ground. Okay? So yun yung relationship among interlocutors na sinasabi natin and its effect, no, on the code switching practices of teachers and students alike. Now, actually yung third factor natin is related to this one, no, yung relationship. Yeah. So we are done with the background of the interlocutors. We have the relationship among the interlocutors. Next one, we have the speech situation. Okay. So again, this is more on the teacher's code switching because being the teacher, parang siya yung mas nakakapag-define or nakakapagbigay ng direction kasi doon sa conversation sa klase, no? So with the teacher's code switching, the situation becomes more relaxed, no? The teacher becomes less intimidating in a way, and what else? The classroom also becomes like a non-threatening environment for learning, especially for language learning. Okay, so ganun natin na-redefine pala yung speech situation when we code switch. Okay, so anong nagiging effect nun sa students? So pag ganito na yung speech situation, students become more participative. Okay, and sinabi rin po ito sa mga related na studies, no? Students become more participative. They gain more confidence. Okay, they feel that yung mga comments nila, yung reactions nila, and what they have to say, they're all welcome. So mas nagiging inviting, no, yung atmosphere for a conversation talaga, for a discussion. Okay? So konting examples pa ulit. Ayan. So this is again from Manila study. So ang sabi ni teacher, ayan, I will give these materials to you. Be fast in making your haiku. Kung sayo mo mahuman, sayo ta manguli. All right, kindly start now. Okay? So in this example, the teacher gives instructions and reminders, no, before the class starts working on their haiku. And based on the message and how code switching is used or employed, the situation somehow becomes encouraging to the students. Parang hindi siya nagiging threatening. No? Kasi diba, especially for the younger kids, for the younger learners, may tendency kasi sila na parang pag binigyan natin sila ng activity or ng quiz, ng exam, parang bigla silang magseseryoso, tatahimik, kakabahan. But telling the students something like this in their language would really redefine the speech situation. Okay? Another example po. Ayan. So sabi ni teacher, ito ay galing din kay Borlongan. Yes, Iha, read the first sentence. Okay? So yung code switching lang naman doon is employed through the use of the word Iha, which is, well, originally from Spanish, but we use it in our language. No? So I would say that, because the teacher is able, because of this practice, no, yung paggamit ng term na Iha, the teacher is able to reach out to the student more. Parang it establishes a relationship, no, between the two of them, yung teacher calling the student Iha. Okay? So, nababago, no, yung speech situation natin. And then last example for this part. Okay, this is a personal example. This is from me. Okay, I posted this comment to one of my students' works on Google Classroom. So sabi ko sa inyo, guilty talaga ako sa ganyan. And sabi ko doon sa estudyante ko, okay, sorry for posting a comment this late. No pressure to reply agad. Thank you. Okay, this is, anong klase to? This is Engtan as well. So yeah, writing of scientific papers. Okay, so in this example, I can personally say that it was my intention. It was really my motivation, no, to sound a little bit more friendly towards my student, especially dahil doon sa sitwasyon, especially because I thought I was not supposed to post my comment at that time. So kaya ako nag-sorry, kaya sabi ko no need to reply agad or no pressure to reply agad. Okay. So from these examples, the teacher's code switching indeed redefines, no, the speech situation. It makes the situation light, no, especially para sa students na sila yung mas nape-pressure doon sa ganung setup. Okay? And speaking of light, we also code switch when we tell jokes, 'di ba? When we use expressions that we think our students could relate to, so code switch din tayo. Ayan. Okay, we've heard this from everywhere. Okay, whether it be yung original na lines ni Jody Santa Maria from her teleserye or her impersonator on TikTok, 'di ba? Naririnig natin palagi yung papunta pa lang tayo sa exciting part. Okay. Actually, pwede naman natin talaga 'tong i-translate eh. I mean, we can state this in English, 'di ba? But then it's not only the message, okay? We want our audience, we want our students to actually get the reference. Gusto natin magets ng mga estudyante natin na that's from Jody Santa Maria's line in the teleserye. Okay? Kasi ang mangyayari, pag sinabi natin siya in English, if we translate this to English, magigets nila yung message but not really the reference. 'Di ba? Kasi pwede naman talaga nating sabihin na, ayun, papunta pa lang tayo sa exciting part, no? So that's just an example, no? That when we insert jokes, when we insert yung mga expressions or lines like this one, nagko-code switch din tayo kasi nga may mga particular na reference. And it also redefines the speech situation. Di ba? Pwede siyang, pwedeng puntahan nung speech situation natin is from formal to informal. And yeah, it makes the situation lighter. Okay? So yeah, those are some of the social factors and motivations for code switching that happens inside the class. Okay? So punta tayo dun sa next part. Okay. Sa exciting part ba to? Okay. So code switching and language learning. So this time naman, yeah, we're looking into code switching in the context of language learning. Like, how does code switching affect learning the target language in a language class? Pag sinabi kasi nating target language, we mean, for example, sa English class, the target language is English. Okay? Kasi yun yung tinuturo natin and yun yung dapat matutunan ng mga bata. Okay? Now, there are contrasting views about code switching in language classes. And itong mga views naman po na ito ay lahat based din naman talaga sa studies, no? There are studies that say that, code switching hinders the student's fluency in the target language. So, merong ganon. And this brings us back to the question of, ano ba talaga yung goal ng language learning? Well, it is basically to develop both the input and output in the target language. So, meaning to say, kailangan nakakaintindi at nakakapag-produce yung estudyante natin in the target language. Pero yun nga, no? There are studies that say that the exposure of the students to code switching would disrupt the development of comprehension and production in the target language. Sabi nga nila, it even causes confusion, especially among young learners. Okay? However, that will not be the focus of this part of the webinar because I would like us to focus on our linguistic reality inside the class. Ano bang nangyayari talaga? Nagko-code switch nga tayo, di ba? Ginagawa nga natin, no? Teachers code switch, students code switch. Okay? So, mas maganda siguro na pag-usapan natin what happens in this linguistic reality. How does our practice of code switching improve our students' language learning? Para ma-maximize natin yung benefits from this linguistic practice na yun nga, na ginagawa na natin. Okay? So bago tayo pupunta doon, it is important that we understand that language learning is not a one-size-fits-all thing or situation. Okay? So for example, sa isang classroom, sa isang classroom naging effective yung constant exposure to the target language, for example, English, and then very limited exposure to other languages like Tagalog, Cebuano, Ilocano, just like our examples. Pero it may not be applicable to all classrooms. Maaaring nag-work siya sa isang classroom, sa isang context, but hindi sa lahat, no? And this is why in every classroom, in every language class, teachers use various methods to foster language learning. And one of which is to code switch. That is part of our linguistic realities inside the classroom. Okay? So, anong nangyayari when we code switch? Tandaan natin that each language has its own structure. Okay? It has its own system of rules. Kaya nga tayo may grammar, di ba? May mga rules of grammar. And when we code switch, we don't just simply alternate the two languages or the codes, but actually ang nangyayari is we integrate these two systems into each other. So mas complex pala yung nangyayari doon. Hindi lang siya parang pinagbibikit-dikit mo yung use of two different languages or codes, but actually you integrate them together. Okay? And that's actually the reason kaya natin sinasabi na rule governed yung code switching. Kasi imagine, meron kang dalawang systems eh. Kasi dalawang language yan, for example. And then they have their own rules. They have their own systems. You integrate them together. So, meron ulit rules yun, no? Rule governed yung code switching na ginagawa natin. And according to Victoria Promkin, no, it reflects the grammar of both languages working simultaneously. So, yun, mas complex no, yung proseso na nangyayari. Okay. And just to illustrate, paano ba yun ginagawa or paano ba siya nangyayari? I have here an example from the study of Bravo Sotelo and Metila. This is from a tertiary level math teacher na nagko-code switch sa klase. Hindi na lang po ito sa language class, pero kinuha ko siya as an example so that I can show you no, yung na sa ganitong example, meron talagang integration of the grammar of English and also of Tagalog in this case. Okay? So tingnan natin, ano bang sabi ni teacher? Ibig sabihin, kung hindi available ang isang function sa calculator, pwede niyong kunin yung kanyang complementary function kasi confident naman kayong they are just equal. So yun yung sabi ni teacher. Okay? So from here, we can say that the elements no, of both languages complement each other to form a sentence. Okay? Parang ganito na lang. Imagine natin, no? What if we are to say or to state this sentence in pure English? So ano gagawin natin? Tatanggalin natin yung ibig sabihin. Gagawin natin so. Pero pag ginawa natin yun, it still serves the same function in the sentence as a conjunction. Okay? O next, yung adverbial clause, di ba? Sabi dun sa original, no? Kung hindi available yung isang function sa calculator, if we are going to state this in English, ganun pa rin. Gagawa pa rin tayo ng adverbial clause. So pwede nating sabihin na, yan, if one function is not available on the calculator, and same with the rest of the sentence, no? If you have a main clause, na let's say nasa Tagalog, ganun din, mapapalitan din siya or kailangan may mag-fill in din sa kanya na main clause but in a different code or different language. Same with yung noun clause. Okay? So, paano natin yun nagagawa? So, ang nangyayari, we see points no, in the utterance where the structures of the two languages converge. Okay? And it makes it possible for us to code switch. So, hindi kasi natin makikita or marirealize itong convergence na ito if we don't have knowledge on the structure of both languages involved, like English and Tagalog. Okay? Well, hindi naman natin deliberately talaga na parang hinahanap no, kung saan ba nagko-converge yung dalawang structures bago tayo mag-code switch. Hindi naman po ganun no, yung practice natin. But the point is, our existing knowledge on the two languages allows us to do this. Nag-ooperate, kumbaga, parang nag-ooperate na sa atin on the background yung grammar ng two languages as we code switch. Okay, kasi nasa repertoire na natin yun eh, yung structures, yung rules of these two languages, and then nai-integrate natin sila when we code switch. Okay? So, another example para, ito, mas maikli naman. Okay, this one is from the study of Bautista, and this is actually a line from Jessica Soho. Parang nagkaroon ng interview si Jessica Soho noon, and then yung data na ginamit ng study is yun, yung interview kay Jessica Soho. So, sabi ni Jessica, I can tell you with a straight face na wala kaming agenda. Okay. So, from here, we see the switch from an English main clause, no? Yung I can tell you with a straight face, to a Tagalog noun clause na wala kaming agenda. Okay? May borrowing nga lang na nangyari doon sa agenda. But just the same, the elements from each language are complementary. Okay? So yung switches natin at the word or clause levels they actually conform to the rules of both languages involved, of English and Tagalog. Okay? Kaya itong mga elements na ito, no, yung words, yung phrases, yung clauses, grammatically linked together sila in the sentence. Kasi nga rule governed eh. May rules tayo na alam. Okay? So, tingnan natin. So, ipinakita ko ito sa inyo ngayon to tell you that code switching requires proficiency, no? Proficiency on both languages. Kaya if we can integrate the grammar of, let's say, one language into another and create a sentence that conforms to the rules of both languages, then ibig sabihin, malamang, andun na tayo sa level of proficiency that allows us to do so. It allows us to make sentences made up of, for example, a clause in English, and then followed by a Tagalog expression, and then followed by another clause in English. Okay? Now, this is not to say, para lang po malinaw, no? This is not to say that parang just because we can code switch means na na-reach na natin yung level of proficiency na mataas, no, on both languages, especially sa case po ng estudyante. Kasi nangyayari din naman yung code switching na ang resulting sentence ay hindi nagko-conform doon sa rules ng dalawang language. It happens. Okay? Makikita natin yan sa mga sentences na hindi smooth yung transition, yung switches, hindi smooth. Parang possible kasi na nangyayari dyan is hindi nakikita ng speaker yung convergence of the two systems. Okay? Kasi meron din tayong tinatawag na deficiency-driven code switching. Okay? So meron din ganun nangyayari po yun na hindi nagko-conform yung sentence dun sa rules. However, our point here is code switching actually enhances, no, how a learner understands both languages. Okay? And when we say understand, no, by understand, this is not only about understanding a message that is stated in the two languages, but actually understanding of the structure of the languages. At doon po nakakatulong, no, yung code switching. Kumbaga, we can say that code switching provides more opportunities for us to practice that knowledge, no, because we get to integrate the two systems into each other. So yun po yung nagagawa ng code switching in terms of language learning. So in a way, parang ang nangyayari is nakaka-develop tayo ng higher level of understanding, higher level of competencies in both languages using code switching. Okay? And if we are to be more specific dun sa context ng Philippine classrooms where yun nga, ang mother tongue natin at saka yung English, they're most of the time alternating, ano? Well, there have also been many studies stating that the use of L1 or the mother tongue or the first language develops a second language. Okay? So, ang kinote ko nga po dito yung galing sa study ni Bernardo, ang sabi niya, code switching between L1 and L2 is a possible scaffold upon which higher levels of competencies can be developed for each of the two languages. Okay? So, doon tayo sa higher levels of competencies kasi yun nga, yung pinag-uusapan natin na nag-i-integrate na tayo ng dalawang sistema of systems of rules, no, for each of the languages. Kaya sinasabi natin higher level na po ito. And this actually supports the use of MTB-MLE. Pero yun nga, this is not only about using the L1, but specifically code switching between L1 and the target language, which for most of our classes is English. Okay? So, this is the last perspective na po. Okay? Yung language teaching, where, so we're looking at code switching in the context of language teaching. And this is especially para po sa mga kagaya ko na teachers, no, dito sa ating mga participants. And allow me to also end my discussion dito. So, closely related naman po ito doon sa language learning perspective. Okay? Kasi ito nga lang, syempre, naka-focus tayo doon sa teachers and the use of code switching as a strategy. Okay? So the question is, should we keep code switching as a language teaching strategy? Okay, I would say yes, no? just like the previous researches that I've been quoting and mentioning kasi nag-a-agree po ako sa kanilang mga sinasabi. But yun nga, babalik pa rin tayo dapat dun sa sinasabi natin kanina that language learning is not a one-size-fits-all thing or it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. And that encourages us to use code switching in different ways. Kasi marami naman po talagang paraan, ano? So babalik tayo dun sa social factors or dun sa motivations na pinag-uusapan natin kanina for code switching and how it helps language learning. 'Di ba? Kasi dun natin maiisip na how much do our students need code switching? How will it help them? No? So yun yung mga bagay na pwede po nating pag-isipan. Like, is it to aid them in understanding us better? Then yes, code switching can do that. Is it for the teachers or for us to reach out to them and bridge our social distance? Then yes, code switching can do that. Is it to create a non-threatening learning environment where they can express themselves? Then yes, no? Code switching can do that as well. Or ito bang mga estudyante natin, are they already on that stage na ang dinedevelop na natin sa kanila ay yung higher levels of competencies on both languages? Then yes, definitely, code switching can do that. Okay po? So yeah, thank you very much po for listening. And I hope that this discussion has invited, more interest, no, on the topic and has enriched our understanding as well. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Prey. What a wonderful discussion. Very relatable po for me as a student, lalo na sa unang-una pa lang yung pag-send ng emails. Nako, ayan, yung pagpopo po kasi indeed, iba nga po yung feeling na kapag dire-diretso English lang ang pagbibigay ng email instead of inserting the po in order to feel a little and to bridge the social distance nga po from our part nga naman. And I think other participants here in the webinar can also relate. Sabi po ni Ma'am Jessie Marie Marcoso, yes, this really helps me a lot as a teacher or FASI. It helps me gauge my learners well and provide them the most appropriate techniques in helping them in their learning. Sabi naman po ni Ma'am Jean Lieno, learning becomes lighter to grasp through code switching. Ayan. True. Sabi nga po ni Ma'am Precious sa atin, we can use code switching in different ways to assess our classrooms for the teachers and also to help with the communication within our classes. So I hope you learned a lot of things in our discussion. We're still not done. Papunta pa po tayo sa iba pang exciting part, even though tapos na tayo sa ating main event. For now, we will be having a short break at this point in our program. Feel free to stretch, hydrate, or use the restroom. When we come back, we will be having our question and answer session with Mama Anyoso. So just keep your questions right there listed down and we'll have them sent. You can send them in the chat box na po or we'll be calling you later. Ayan. For now, we have enjoyed this cover of Adele's Easy on Me by one of our BACA students in UPLB by Maureen May. See you later po.
There is no gold in this river that I've been washing my hands in forever. I know there is hope in these waters, but I can't bring myself to swim when I am drowning in the silence, baby. Let me go easy on me, baby. I was still a child, didn't get the chance to feel the world around me. time to choose what I chose to do. So go easy on me. There ain't no room for things to change when we are both so deeply stuck in our ways. You can't deny how hard I've tried. I changed who I was to put you both first, but now I give up. Go easy on me, baby. I was still a child, didn't get the chance to feel the world around me. I had no time to choose what I chose to do. So go easy on me. And I had good intentions in the highest hopes, but no, right now it probably doesn't even show. Go easy on me, baby. I was still a child, didn't get the chance to feel the world around me. I had no time to choose what I chose to do. So go easy on me. You can't deny how hard I've tried. I changed who I was to put you both first, but now I give up.
And we're back. That was Mao with her rendition of Easy on Me by Adele. Such a wonderful cover. If you wish to see more of Maureen's covers, she has them plus other content up on her YouTube channel. You may just search her up by typing Maureen May. Don't forget to give her a like and subscribe. All right, is everyone here? May I see a round of reacts just to check if everyone's good already? There's a live react from Sir Gerard there. Thank you po, sir. And thank you, everyone. Just a few reminders before we start our Q&A session, which will be moderated by the Light Programs Assistant Coordinator, Sir Gerard Eusebio. If you have any questions, kindly raise your hand and wait to be called upon before turning on your microphone to speak. Or you may just send in your questions through the chat box and Sir Gerard will be reading it to our speaker. Okay, without further ado, please, Sir Gerard, take it away.
Thank you, Wine, and congratulations to our speaker today, Ma'am Precious. Thank you for spending your Monday afternoon with us. And to our participants, same goes to you. Thank you po for being here. Ayan na, nagpo na din ako. May senior faculty na nandito. We appreciate you being here today. So for this Q&A, this open forum, I would like to invite everyone in attendance to please ask your questions. You can send them via chat or you can send them directly to me. Or you could raise your hand and you will be recognized and you may ask the question yourself through the microphone. All right, and I saw a hand raised and her camera is on. So We'll start, Ma'am Precious. I hope you're ready.
Yes po.
Ma'am Morcoso, you are recognized, ma'am. You may please ask your question.
Hi, Sir Gerard. Thank you for recognizing, and thank you also for our host, Ma'am Wine, and to our speaker. Thank you very much for that very comprehensive yet enlightening discussion. My question po, because I am a teacher in senior high school, and I'm teaching specifically English subjects such as oral communication. And during oral communication classes with my three classes, I do code switch. And sometimes I feel guilty because I have an EOP policy. Like during the orientation, I asked them that this is an EOP class only or an English only class. And would the code switching that I do, would that discourage them speaking from or speaking the English language? Because my switching is tatlo eh. Like from English, I translate it in Tagalog, or if they still couldn't understand it, I switch it to Bicol or our own dialect. So would that code switching discourage them from speaking or from practicing their oral com skills in English? Thank you, ma'am, for responding or for answering my question.
Okay, ayan po. Hi, Ma'am Jessie, and thank you for your question. Ano po? So, I believe ang tama ba yung pagkakaintindi ko, you were asking kung makaka-discourage ba yung or ano yung magiging effect no nung code switching po ninyo sa isang class which you say is meron kayong English only policy na ginagawa. First of all,
Yes po.
I think yung pagko-code switch po natin sa klase, tayo no as teachers, it would actually encourage our students to code switch as well. Yun. And siguro pwede natin siyang i-relate dun sa sinasabi ko kanina na speech accommodation theory na we adjust our speech, we adjust the way that we speak based on our addressee or based po doon sa ating kausap. So nagkakaroon po siya ng effect. No, possible na meron siyang effect doon sa estudyante natin when we code switch, and then yon kaya lang merong naghihinder sa kanila kasi meron pala tayong English only policy. However, dapat din po nating balikan ano ba yung purpose no nung code switching na ginagawa natin inside our classes, and we have to I believe no we have to make our students understand that ano ba yung purpose, why are we code switching as teachers, no? So if it is to help them better understand us or to better understand yung mga ine-explain natin sa kanila, then that would be fine. Yun nga lang po, siguro I would suggest na let's make the students understand kung ano ba yung purposes nitong linguistic practice na ito. And yun nga, parang despite the teacher doing, parang despite the teacher code switching, are the students supposed to really speak in English only? And kailangan po nagigets din ng bata kung anong purpose nun. And siguro sa part naman nila, it's really for them to practice, no? To practice the language, to practice na makapag-produce using the language. So may kanya-kanya pong may kanya-kanya pong purposes. So siguro I would suggest yon na kailangan maunawaan din ng estudyante ano ba yung code switching and why do we do it. So babalik tayo do sa purposes. Yun po.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, thank you very much po.
Thank you for your question, Ma'am Marcos. Are you from Bicol, the Bicol region?
Yes, I'm from Legazpi City po.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here, ma'am, and for your question. We have other questions sent here through the chat. Before we call on Sir Lawrence, I'd like to ask Sir Dustin Tabacon this question. Translanguaging also provides the same benefit in a language classroom. May I know the difference between code switching and translanguaging? Would you like me to repeat the question, Ma'am Prey? Translanguaging also provides the same benefit in a language classroom. May I know the difference between code switching and translanguaging?
Okay, ayan. So, hindi po ako makapag-unmute, sorry. Okay, so ang tanong po ay difference, no, ng translanguaging and ng code switching. Kasi yes, totoo naman po 'yun, ano, pareho sila ng benefit na na binibigay, no? Pero kasi when we say translanguaging, una sa lahat, ano ba yung pagkakapareho niya sa code switching? So, we use more than one language within a classroom or or dun sa lesson natin, no? Siguro I would say ang nagiging difference lang po ng translanguaging is mas mas specific siya as a pedagogical process. Pero yun, of course, I will be open to more ideas about translanguaging. Pero the way I see it, parang mas nakikita ko yung translanguaging as a pedagogical process. Whereas yung code switching kasi, it's general. Na it's really the use of more than one code or one linguistic variety in a single conversation. So mas particular po in pedagogy yung translanguaging. And yes, pareho din sila ng benefit na nabibigay sa ating mga klase. Ayan po.
Sir Tabahunda, I hope that answers your question. Actually, that's a similar question from Sir Rafi Herrera. He was also asking about the difference between the two terms. So I hope, Sir Rafi, that also answers your question. I believe we have a participant who was raising his hand earlier. Sir Lawrence, you may now mute your microphone if you're ready with your question.
Good afternoon po.
Good afternoon. Go ahead, sir.
So my question is, does the code switching only confined po ba siya sa related conversation in language classroom lang? How about content courses like technical courses or science technology courses, mathematics? Yung effect po ba nun na diniscuss ninyo about language classroom, ay same lang din po sa mga content courses? Thank you po.
Ma'am Pray, did you get that?
Oo. Medyo ano lang, may noise. Pero I think the question was kung same lang din yung effect, no, when it comes to the content courses. Actually, if you noticed po doon sa aking presentation, I've also mentioned researches, no, may mga kinuhanan din ako na researches na on the content courses naman or on the content subjects like mathematics, no. And I'd have to say pareho naman siya, no. I mean, etong discussion kasi natin naging specific lang siya sa language classes, kaya tayo may discussion on language learning. But then kung ang titingnan natin is yung kung paano nakakatulong yung code switching when it comes to for example yung pagbe-bridge, no, ng social distance between the student and the teacher, yung pagtulong sa pag-intindi, no, ng mga estudyante doon sa tinuturo natin sa ating mga content subjects, then yes, same din naman po yung magiging benefit. And also yung sinasabi natin kanina na benefits or effects ng code switching sa language classes or sa language learning, mapapractice din natin siya doon sa content classes or sa content subjects like math, like science. So every time po na ini-employ natin, no, yung code switching or our students are code switching in our science or math subjects, for example. So ganun din, no? It provides opportunities for the student to practice yung pag-i-integrate nung two systems, no, or two languages together. So napapractice din po even in the content courses or subjects.
Thank you, Ma'am Pray. Actually, I would like to do a follow-up question. Thank you. I hope that answers your query, Sir Lawrence. Dadagdagan ko actually yung question niya because I was hoping to get there. Pero thank you, Sir Lawrence, for inunahan mo na yung usapan about the other content courses or classes that we have. My question is this, Ma'am Pray. How should the insights that you have shared with us, and as Ma'am also said, they were comprehensive. Now, at the end of your talk, kind of recommended, as far as language classes are concerned, that code switching is good. Tama ba? It's useful and we should continue doing that. No? But again, not one size fits all. But my question is, how should the insights that you have mentioned, and I'm sure there are more, no, if we excavate from all the studies that we have done in the past, how can the insights we gather from code switching, about code switching, affect classroom policies? Kanina, you started your talk with yung mga DepEd, parang memorandum, and all those things, saka yung English-only policies that have been around for decades. How should we how should these insights affect the classroom policies in the future?
Okay po. Thank you, Sir Gerard. Okay, so yun nga 'no, nagpakita po ako ng mga example and I've mentioned also yung kahit ako yung personal experience ko when it comes to, the English only policy when I was in elementary. Pero the thing is, kailangan kasi nating tingnan din yung, kailangan nating klaruhin ano ba yung definition when you say, medium of instruction or language of instruction. So ang understanding kasi natin is it should be the language that is being used in all the materials for the class, yung mga books na binabasa ng estudyante natin, even yung delivery nung ating mga courses, even yung assessment. So doon po siya sa aspetong yon nagagamit as a medium of instruction. Let's say for example, English. But then kahit na ganun, hindi naman kasi tayo pinagbabawalan. I believe wala namang pagbabawal sa atin to use an auxiliary language kasi nandun pa rin tayo sa goal na kailangang maunawaan, our students should be able to understand yung mga lessons, kailangan naiintindihan nila tayo. And it's going to be difficult siguro sa konteksto natin lalo in the Philippines that we are multilingual, na talagang maging sobrang strict tayo, English lang talaga as in hindi tayo magko-code switch at all, So I think magiging mahirap po sa setting or sa context natin sa Pilipinas bilang multilingual tayo. And also ayun, kailangan lang po malinaw, ano ba yung sinasabi natin na medium of instruction? Saan ba nagsisimula at saan ang hangganan ng pagiging medium of instruction niya? And I believe yun nga, meron naman po tayong laya to use auxiliary languages, to use yung mga yung mother tongue to enhance yung understanding ng ating mga estudyante.
Thank you, Ma'am Pray. Siguro follow up, pero ano lang, parang just an idea. Possibly, are there studies that show how, for example, the medium of instruction, English versus kung Tagalog or mixed or nagko-code switch, meron ba difference yung quality of learning? Like, have you encountered ideas or studies that have been done in the past that show wala namang significance or mas okay pala actually kung may mix na paggamit ng mga lengguwahe? Or mas okay talaga pag pure English, for example?
Okay. Honestly, Sir Gerard, parang so far dun sa mga recent na nakikita ko din ng mga studies, parang wala akong nakita kasi na directly nagko-compare. Na parang for example, a specific group of students or a specific class na parang kinompare talaga what if we use both languages, for example, two languages in instruction, or what if monolingual lang yung gagamitin natin. Parang so far wala pa po akong nakikitang ganun. And siguro bumabalik din ito doon sa experience natin or doon sa konteksto natin na even before nga MPB-MLE, bilingual education yung natin yung konteksto natin. So ayun, I guess kaya so far wala pa po akong nababasa na ganun, but I would love to read kung sakaling meron din pong maisasuggest yung ating mga participants. It's going to be
Thank you,
very
Ma'am Pray.
interesting.
From Sir Jamil Christian Liza, tanong ko po kay Prof. Anyoso, sa perspektibo ng klase sa Filipino, paano natin babasagin ang puristang pananaw ng hindi pagpapahintulot sa code switching ng Ingles? At makakaapekto po ba ang code switching sa mga debate patungkol sa pagsulong ng Ingles bilang wikang pangturo. So related nun sa pinag-usapan natin just now.
Okay. So, ang tanong ay tungkol sa puristang pananaw, no, ng hindi, kapag yun nga, pag hindi natin papayagan sa klase natin ang code switching. Actually sa ganitong usapan po kasi naniniwala ako, no, na, palagi nating kakailanganin nga, kagaya nung sinabi ko, palagi nating kakailanganin ng auxiliary language. Palagi nating kakailanganin ng, isang wikang pantulong. Kaya yung, para sa akin, 'no, personally po, yung, hindi pagpapahintulot ng code switching, halimbawa, kunyari sa Filipino classes po ba itong tanong, tama po ba?
Oo, sa Filipino class.
Paano natin babasagin ang puristang pananaw ng hindi pagpapahintulot ng code switching? Sa Ingles. So, ayun po. At saka ang tanong ay makakaapekto ba ang code switching sa mga debate? Okay, patungkol sa pagsulong ng Ingles bilang wikang panturo. So, yun nga po, ang kagaya ng sinasabi ko, naniniwala po ako personally na palagi natin kakailanganin ng wikang pantulong kasi dapat bumabalik tayo dun sa konteksto natin na multilingual. Kagaya nga po nung sinabi ko kanina, yung sa Zamboanga, na sa loob ng isang classroom, merong estudyante na nagsasalita ng Chabacano, may nagsasalita ng Bisaya or ng Cebuano, may nagsasalita ng Tagalog, ng Tausug. So, lumalabas po yung pangangailangan talaga ng bawat klase or ng isang classroom, ng isang guro na pahintulutan, no, yung code switching or basically pahintulutan ang paggamit ng isang wikang pantulong, no, para po sa higit na pagkakaintindihan, no, sa loob ng classroom. So, yun po para sa akin, talagang mas kailangan, no, na makita natin yung halaga ng paggamit ng isang common na wika, no, sa loob ng ating classroom. Kaya para sa akin, sana po yun, mas okay sana na pahintulutan natin, no, or i-allow natin yung mga estudyante natin na gumamit ng iba pang wika. Ayun po.
Okay, thank you. Hindi ko alam kung nasagot na yung question ni Mr. Zohail Ador or ma'am. I'm sorry. Hindi ko po alam kung nasagot na yung how does the concept of code switching differ or relate with the concept of translanguaging. Nasagot mo na ba kanina yun, Ma'am Pray?
So ang i-mention ko po doon kanina, although I would say gusto ko rin po talagang mapag-aralan pa lalo yung translanguaging, no. Pero ang nakikita ko po kasing basic na difference nila is mas pedagogical yung translanguaging, no. Whereas yung code switching kasi it's general na as in paggamit, no, ng higit sa isang wika, no, sa isang conversation. Ayun po.
Okay, thank you. We have another question here from, kapangalan mo, Anyoso Vincent Angelo. According to Randolph Kirk, non-native Englishes are not valid as teaching models, but Kachru says otherwise. Ayan, what's your stand po? Given the topic na code switching, would students benefit more sa immersion or would they be better off mixing languages to better understand the learning materials? Thank you, Sir Angela, for that question. Ma'am Pray?
Okay, so saan ba magbe-benefit ang estudyante? So kung i-immerse ba natin doon sa language, sa target language, no? Or hahayaan natin sila na mag-mix ng languages. Actually, siguro ito yung nakikita ko na importance na pinag-usapan natin yung social linguistics of code switching. Kasi it happens on a case-to-case basis eh. It differs in terms of, halimbawa, ano bang level na nung mga bata? Are they, halimbawa, nasa lower grade levels ba sila? Or nandun na ba sila sa, let's say for example, mga high school students? Okay? Na maaari siguro, no, pagka ganun na yung case, pwedeng mas ma-maximize yung benefit ng code switching kapag hinayaan natin sila na gamitin ito at ma-expose dito. Kasi yun nga, sabi natin kanina, mas nagkakaroon ng opportunity, no, sa code switching yung mga bata to practice yung integration of the two different systems of the languages. Okay? So I guess nakadepende siya doon sa pangangailangan ng ng estudyante, no? Kasi itong isang sinasabi na would students benefit more on the immersion. Okay, so tingnan din natin ano bang purpose nung immersion na yon. Okay, so nandun pa ba tayo sa stage na gusto nating i-immerse yung estudyante natin kasi um, hindi pa ganun kataas yung level of understanding nila in both languages? Then yes, no, malaking tulong kung talagang i-immerse natin sila doon sa language. But then yun nga, kung nandun na tayo sa level na tingin natin nandun na sila sa level na kaya na nilang mag-integrate, kaya na nilang mag-create ng mga sentences, for example, na nagko-conform dun sa rules of, let's say, the two languages, then mas mama-maximize nila yung benefit of code switching if we let them mix the languages. Especially dun sa pag-intindi din ng mga learning materials. So dun siya babalik sa idea na hindi siya one size fits all.
So depende sa purpose, no? What's that stage siguro of where they're learning the materials.
Oo, kaya important yung malaman natin, importante na napag-usapan natin yung social linguistics of code switching, most especially yung background, no, of the interlocutors. Saan ba sila nanggagaling? Ano na yung level nila para at least na namo-modify din natin yung gagamitin natin na teaching strategy, for example, especially in language teaching.
Thank you, Ma'am Prey, and thank you again for that question from Sir Angelo. Speaking of non-native Englishes, I would like to do a little segue on this because I did write here in my notes that from my background of creative writing, I've encountered this concept coined, I think, I'm not sure, coined by, I think, national artist Lumbera, transliteration. No, so ito yung ang dinedescribe dun sa transliteration. Pag nagsusulat ka kunyari ng kwento sa English, maikling kwento, pwede kang gumamit dun sa script ng mga characters, dun sa dialogue, gagamit ka ng English, pero pag binasa mo, alam mong sinabi nila yun sa Tagalog. Yung parang tinranslate mo siya in English, pero yung grammar, yung pagkakasunod-sunod ng mga words, you can hear na sa Tagalog, tsaka kunyari sa palengke, mga taga-palengke, nag-uusap sila in English sa paper, pero pag binasa mo, may tunog siya, no, na parang ang dating sa'yo ay Tagalog yung nagsasalita. Now, ang gusto ko pong tanungin, ay kakabit dito sa tanong ni Mr. Angelo ay, yung how far are we from developing a hybrid language, yung tinatawag nating Taglish, because also in literature, may ganito na, yung Indian English, African American English, yung parang may sarili na talaga silang stand-alone language na galing sa English. So that my question is, how far are we? Or meron na ba? Meron na, official na ba yung, for example, Taglish?
Okay. Siguro kung dun sa tanong na official na ba yung Taglish, parang hindi pa naman po. Parang hindi pa naman siya umabot dun sa status na it's going to be an official language. Kasi still, yung pagta-Taglish natin ay nabubuo lang din talaga natin out of yung mixing of English and Tagalog na alam natin na itong English and Tagalog, pareho silang may sariling may sariling system, pareho silang may sariling grammar. But of course, hindi natin inaalis yung possibility, it's really possible na kasi ang nangyayari, 'di ba, sabi natin pag nagko-code switch tayo, nag-i-integrate tayo ng dalawang systems together, dalawang grammars, for example. So ibig sabihin lang doon, posible na maka-create tayo ng isang buong system. 'Di ba? Out of the two systems. So hindi I would say it's possible pero hindi pa siya parang ganoon na as an official language Pero yon, posible siya, hindi siya malabong mangyari especially knowing na ang language natin naman it's continuously evolving. Tapos yun nga sobrang active ng pagbabago dun sa ating wika kagaya nga for example nitong panahon ng pandemic, 'di ba? Yung sabi natin yung constant na pag-i-insert ng po and other particles in Tagalog inilalagay natin sa English. So, 'yun, yung mga pagbabago na ganun, actually pwede siyang mag-lead, no? Talaga na maka-create tayo ng isang buong system out of the two systems na in-integrate natin through code switching. So it's really possible po.
Thank you, Ma'am Pray. From Miguel Angela Sevilla at I direct message. Is there a correlation between socioeconomic status and language proficiency in the frequency of code switching? Meron bang correlation between socioeconomic status and language proficiency in the frequency of code switching?
Okay. Ang question po, sorry, ay socioeconomic status and
Language proficiency, may correlation ba yung dalawa? In the
okay.
frequency of code switching, hindi ko alam if tama yung idadagdag ko, Sir Sevilla, if this is what you mean, like yung mga konyo, for example, I guess,
Mm,
um, correlation. Naghanap lang ng correlation.
oo. Okay. Siguro ito ay specifically language proficiency in English. Baka yun yung iniisip natin, ano. So, yung socioeconomic status and language proficiency in English. Well, sa experience kasi natin, actually parang nabasa ko din dito sa mga comments natin 'no, na yung mga bata ngayon mas sanay daw sila na pure English yung natututunan na first language, 'di ba? Kasi dahil din 'yan sa exposure nila to different media like yun nga yung YouTube, 'di ba? Sabi nung isa nating participant, they watch Cocomelon, they watch Peppa Pig and so on. So I guess ang masasabi ko po dito is really nakakaapekto 'no, yung socio-economic status kasi it allows, the speakers or the young learners, the students to be exposed to different media. So ito yung nagbibigay sa kanila ng resources kung ano ba yung saang klaseng media, anong klaseng media ba yung mako-consume nila, 'di ba? Parang gaano ba ka-available sa kanila yung mga, sabi nga dito yung mga palabas like, Peppa Pig, like Cocomelon, 'di ba? It says something about their ano, their socio-economic status and therefore, siguro one of the effects 'no, na naibibigay nito is yun nga, mas nauunang matuto yung bata ng English 'no, dahil dun sa exposure niya na nadadala or naidudulot naman nung kanyang socio-economic status. So I would say yes, meron pong relation itong dalawang ito. It's just that parang hindi ako makapagbigay ng very specific 'no, ah, na details about it. Pero the way na ina-analyze ko siya, posible talaga na meron. Kasi yun nga, yung socioeconomic status natin, it allows us, it gives us exposure 'no, to the different media that we consume. And yun yung nagde-define kung anong wika 'no, yun yung nakakaapekto kung anong wika yung, natututunan ng una ng bata. And it affects it affects yung ano, yung kung gaano sila natututo sa English. Kasi yun nga, marami pong mga bata na bago pa pumasok sa school, ang galing na nilang mag-English, 'di ba? So, ayun po.
Hindi lang magaling mag-English yung meron na silang accent. Di ba?
Oo,
Slang.
yeah.
Alam nila yung slang. Yung pronunciation, iba
Mm.
talaga.
Oo,
Ma'am,
ayun nga. Kasi dahil yun dun sa mga nako-consume nila na media, 'no? Kasi imagine niyo parang, kung i-imagine natin paano kaya magsalita ng English yung isang bata na exposed sa Cocomelon, sa Peppa Pig and so on. Whereas ang isang bata na parang hindi naman siya na-expose sa gano'ng mga klaseng, palabas 'no. Like for example, puro local channels lang yung napapanood niya. So, kumbaga mas nagkakaroon ng effect 'no, doon sa bata na na-e-expose talaga doon sa mga palabas na ganito.
Kung wala silang Wi-Fi connection, for example, di ba?
Yeah, or phones, 'di ba? Smartphone, ganyan.
Yeah. Ma'am Pray, baka maybe you would like to continue answering Sir John Harold Villarreal's question. Itong Peppa Pig, Cocomelon. Ang tanong niya dito, parang mas nagiging L1 na po nila ang English. Bumababa na rin po ang vocabulary knowledge sa ilang Filipino words. Does this imply the difference of level of learning nila kesa sa panahon natin? Level of learning.
Okay. Does this imply the difference of level of learning? Siguro hindi naman po yung level of learning kasi ang language learning naman it's a process, no? Merong scientific process kung paano tayo natututo ng isang wika. So siguro kung ikukumpara natin yung mga bata ngayon compared to yung mga bata before, siguro ang makikita lang natin na difference talaga dun is yung mga external factors, 'di ba? So yung experience ng mga bata, for example, sa panahon ngayon. So kagaya nga nung sinabi ni Sir Harold, yun nga, so nanonood sila ng mga ganitong palabas na hindi naman natin na-experience before. 'Di ba? So yun siguro yung nagde-define ng difference. Yun yung nagpapakita ng difference, not really on the level of learning, pero iba lang kasi yung konteksto. Pero kung yung proseso ng language learning, sa tingin ko naman it's the same. No, it's the same process. It's just that maraming external factors na nakakaapekto doon sa language learning ng mga bata ngayon. Actually iniisip ko nga parang ano ba yung mga palabas na nasa English nung bata ako, for example. So if I would recall, parang for example, merong mga palabas like Apple, yun, mga ganong TV programs na kahit na it's really in English, pero unlike yung Peppa Pig, yung Cocomelon and other shows on YouTube ngayon, yun kasi may accent, 'di ba? Whereas kung i-compare ko halimbawa lang dun nga sa palabas like Apple, these are Filipino speakers, no? Filipino yung mga yan na nagsasalita ng English. And so, iba yung na-acquire, iba yung nakukuhang accent halimbawa nung mga bata no na exposed dun sa ganitong palabas compared dun sa mga palabas na pinapanood nilang sa ngayon. So I guess hindi naman po siguro yung level of learning pero iba po ng konteksto. Kaya nagkakaiba din sila ng iba yung kung paano sila gumamit ng English, for example. Yun. So, context po yung nagpapaiba, mga external factors and not really the process of learning.
So parang level of, I would imagine it's a level of exposure to the language. I mean, kasi nga because of social media and the age of the internet, sobrang bilis ng information dumating. No? I mean, dati kailangan mo ng cable, di ba? Cable subscription to watch Disney Channel shows. Na yun, ano na, you can just watch them wherever you are. You just need a gadget and a connection to the internet. Thank you. There are a lot of comments here, Ma'am Pre, no? Just let me know if you want to respond. But I'm seeing one more question from Sir Lawrence again. Despite the notion that code switching can be categorized as an obsolete topic, di umano po, I don't know how you'll respond to that. What are your recommendations po for future researchers having code switching as their core paper? So I didn't know that there was a notion that code switching can be categorized as an obsolete topic. No, di umano po. Maybe Sir Lawrence could also clarify this his question. Pero Ma'am Pray?
Actually, okay lang po ba? Baka nga po ma-clarify muna ni Sir Lawrence yung binabanggit niya dito.
Yung sa code switch parang sinabi ng professor namin na marami na siyang parang common na siya, gasgas na yung topic na yun. Parang napaka-traditional topic na. So parang anong bago? Parang ganun po. So kaya nakategorize namin siya bilang mga group, kaka-group as obsolete topic na. So parang yung research namin wala pong sipa, parang ganun po. Kaya ano po yung ma-recommend na since core po namin yung code switch.
Okay. Well, gano'n naman po sa research talaga, no? I mean, kailangan nating palaging makahanap ng bago. No? That's the challenge for us researchers. Na kahit, code switching is a practice na palagi naman na nating ginagawa ever since. Yun nga, ang challenge natin is makahanap tayo what's new. So siguro tingnan natin yung iba't ibang halimbawa, yung iba't ibang pinaggagamitan ng code switching. Like for example, on social media or ito from yung classroom conversations, no? So actually, yun, sa loob ng classroom, ang dami ng mga researches about code switching. Kaya nga yun, yung mga na-mention ko kanina, yung mga na-cite ko, ganun yung mga studies na yun. But then siguro tingnan din natin, ano ba yung nagbago sa panahon ngayon? So pwede na nating isama yung mga online classes, for example, yung mga conversations natin via email, for example, or sa chat or sa text, yung mga ganun. So kung titingnan siguro natin yung code switching per se, oo nga, puwedeng ma-consider nga siya as an obsolete, na topic. Pero there's always going to be something new. Kasi sabi ko nga kanina, nag-e-evolve din naman yung paggamit natin ng wika. So, like for example, ngayon nakikita natin na, okay, it's being used online. We can hear code switching sa mga, for example, sa mga advertisements, nababasa natin ang code switching sa social media. May research ng gano'n, eh. May research na rin akong nakita na code switching naman on yung mga printed magazines. So, ang dami. Pero again, nag-e-evolve yung paggamit natin ng wika. So, saan pa ba pumapasok yung code switching? So, I think that's the challenge, no? Kailangan lang natin talagang i-explore, no? Na wag natin siyang ikulong. Kasi kahit for example, yung usapin ng code switching inside the classroom, ang dami nating pwedeng puntahan eh. So pwedeng doon nga sa language classes. Pwede kang pumunta sa mga content classes, no? Or sa, let's say subjects like math and science. Or madalas ang nakikita ko rin na studies kasi on code switching ay sa mga classes din na supposedly English yung medium of instruction. So pwede nating baliktarin ngayon. What if, kumusta naman yung code switching, let's say sa mga Filipino classes, di ba? Sa mga subjects na ang medium of instruction talaga is supposedly in Filipino. So yun, marami tayo actually pwedeng puntahan, no, na direction. So wag lang natin siyang tingnan as code switching itself. Kasi oo, pwede siya talagang makita as an obsolete topic. Pero i-explore lang din natin, no? I-observe natin, saan pa ba natin nakikita, saan pa ba natin nagagamit itong linguistic practice na ito.
Thanks, Ma'am Pray. Would you support yung idea ko that I feel like walang empirical basis, no? I just feel like from living day to day in the Philippines and online, on Twitter, on Facebook, parang code switching naman is a norm. Hindi ba? Parang, isn't it like a daily thing that we do? So, I imagine na dahil it's a daily experience for all of us, or many of us, even in the academia, I think there would be a lot of areas for gaps, na maraming gaps that we can try to fill in for Sir Lawrence. Ma'am Jessie Marie is raising her hand. Ma'am?
Yes po.
Go ahead po.
Just to share din po, Sir Gerard and Ma'am Precious, like in my case, I also handle 21st century literature classes. So with that subject, very big help code switching for me and for my students, because literature, like you let the students expound their ideas, and then yung literary analysis nila, literary explorations nila, mas na-expound nila yung ideas nila with code switching. That's how I perceive it. And then most especially ngayon yung competencies na meron kami sa literature, like we push on parang pinag-aaralan namin yung Bicol literature. So mas sa akin mas gusto silang magbasa, mas gusto nilang mag-discuss about Bicol literature, but parang may improvement dun sa vocab nila when it comes to speaking and like talking about their experiences in learning new stories. So sa akin, very useful yung code switching sa literature. Kaya lang doon lang ako medyo struggling sa oral communication. Kasi like with that, it's parang very strict talaga yon. But with literature naman, code switching is parang na-explore siya masyado and nagagamit siya and very advantageous in both the students and yung role ko as their FASI. Parang mas maganda yung pagkaka-explain nila or pagkaka-analyze nila, and mas naintindihan nila yung lahat ng elements. For example, like we have just finished talking about or discussing about the certain Bicol literary piece.
mas maganda yung discussion namin, mas maganda yung parang mga outputs nila. So, yun talaga po yung parang very big help ang code switching sa literature. Thank you po.
Thank you for sharing, Ma'am Marcoso. Ma'am Bray, would you like to respond to
Yeah.
Ma'am's
Ayan.
sharing?
So, thank you po kay Ma'am Jessie. So, I would have to agree, no? Actually, hindi ko yata kasi na-mention kanina na, yun nga, malaking tulong talaga yung code switching, especially for literature courses. Lalo na kung babalikan natin, ano ba yung goal ng class? Ano ba yung goal ng course? What do we want our students to do? Aside from yung using the language, no? Using the target language. So, tingnan natin, no? Are they supposed to, think critically and creatively habang, 'di ba, habang pinag-uusapan natin yung mga literary pieces like poems and stories. So, tingnan po natin yun kasi kung ganun yung goal, malaking tulong talaga, no, yung code switching kasi the students will be able to express themselves more, 'di ba? Sabi nga natin, mas nagiging relaxed, mas nagiging maganda yung atmosphere, no, for a discussion. And also at the same time, since nagdi-discuss kayo, nag-uusap kayo na nagko-code switch, I think nakaka-develop din naman siya, no, nung higher level of competencies in both the languages that you use. So, kumbaga, parang you're hitting yung dalawang goals, no, na nakukuha natin, na i-improve natin yung competencies ng bata dun sa dalawang language na ginagamit natin, and at the same time mas na-enrich yung discussion dun sa about the literature na pinag-uusapan sa class.
O, parang
Thank you
ito
po.
din, thank you. Parang ito din comment ni Ma'am Zapra, no? Parang it's kind of supports the sharing of Ma'am Morcoso, yung na-observe din ni Ma'am Zapra sa kanyang grade 11 students, 21st century literature, they do code switching twice. And code switching mother tongue to Filipino and then Filipino to English. So parang natural talaga sa atin, no? Multilingual people that we are to do code switching. Magawi tayo dun sa question ni Ma'am Donna Bulong. Just to confirm daw, no, yung konyo and use of certain words in another language while speaking another language, example, po in English conversations, would be code mixing na po ba? Marami po kasing discourses around code mixing and code switching wherein they are often mistaken for another. At parang nabanggit mo to kanina, na, Ma'am Pray.
Ayun. So, actually kasi marami pong mga scholars and researchers talaga who refer to code mixing as actually code switching din siya, but specifically intrasentential. So, yung tinatanong po ni Ma'am Donna kung code mixing yung halimbawa, pag i-insert ng po, let's say in a single sentence. But technically, kung gagamitin natin yung term na ginagamit ng ibang scholars, then yes, it is code mixing. And we can also refer to it as intrasentential code switching. Yun. So, kumbaga, kung titingnan natin yung definition, mas umbrella term kasi yung code switching. Ayun.
Thank you, Ma'am Pray. I hope that answers Ma'am Donna's question. Ako din, natutunan ko ngayon ko lang na-encounter yung intra at inter-sentential. Ayan. Alright. Meron ditong comment si Sir Randolph Katungan. And he has contributed greatly sa mga comments dito sa chat box. Pero gusto kong dagdagan ng tanong itong comment niya. I don't know why still many see code switching as non-beneficial to language users. Learners are more expressive in language 1, L1, and code switching is useful for better comprehension. Maybe we could help explore why many still see code switching as non-beneficial. What are the paradigms, or where are they coming from kaya? No, yung mga hindi nakakakita na beneficial ang code switching. What do you think, Ma'am Pray?
Okay. So pagdating dun sa ganung mga views, no, kasi I also mentioned it earlier na, yeah, there are views na sinasabi nila it disrupts the language learning, no, or nako-confuse. Dun kasi siguro sila nanggagaling na they're thinking nako-confuse yung mga bata or nako-confuse yung language learners when they're, when they're using two languages at the same time. Pero I guess ang mahalaga kasi na intindihin natin, ano ba yung nagiging process of language learning? Yun. And also, ano ba yung nangyayari dun sa proseso when we code switch, when we switch to one language to another. Kaya po, binabanggit ko kanina, yung pag integrate ng dalawang systems together. Kasi it actually justifies na nakaka-achieve tayo ng higher level of competency on both languages if we are able to do that. Kung nakakapag-code switch tayo na proficiency driven. Yun. So, I guess ang makakatulong talaga doon for other people no who see code switching as non-beneficial is really to look into yung language learning. Ano ba yung nagiging process nun para makita natin or ma-appreciate natin how code switching improves no yung language learning. Kasi parang siguro ang tinitingnan natin is baka mali ito no yung bata kasi baka hindi parang kumbaga baka hindi ma-identify which one is Tagalog, which one is English, which one is Cebuano. So yung mga ganon. But then I think it's a natural process of of language learning. And yun nga, tingnan natin yung perspective ng language learning. Alamin natin what really happens in that process. Kasi actually doon sa proseso na iyon, ang na-achieve natin higher competency 'di ba? Kasi the fact that we can integrate two systems into one, 'di ba? Mas may naa-achieve tayo, no? Mas complex actually yung process na yun. Kasi for us to do that, kailangan nauunawaan natin yung separate yung separate systems. No?
Yeah.
Ano ba yung grammar ng Tagalog? Ano ba yung grammar ng English? For us to be able to integrate them and come up with a sentence na nagko-conform doon sa dalawang set of rules na yun.
Right.
Yun.
Thanks, Ma'am Pray. So we've seen and we've heard the many advantages of code switching, specifically for language classes and language learning, rather. Pero to si Ma'am Raagas, may question siya. I would like to ask, what are the disadvantages if your kids are multilingual? Does it affect critical thinking? So ito ay multilingual question pala. Not just about code switching. Have you
Okay.
encountered any studies related to this?
Okay. Personally, kung studies po yung pag-uusapan, well, hindi pa ako nakakakita talaga ng may empirical data on how being multilingual affects critical thinking. But then siguro doon ako manggagaling sa fact na the more languages you know, the more languages you speak, the more the more ways that you can see the world, kumbaga. So, para sa akin, kung gaano karami yung mga wika no na sinasalita natin, mas lumalawak yung worldview natin eh. And it also allows us na ma-practice lalo yung critical thinking. So mas lumalawak yung paradigms natin no kapag mas marami tayong wika na alam. So I guess when it comes to critical thinking, hindi naman siya nagiging advantageous kung especially sa atin no, tayo as multilinguals bilang mga Pilipino. So yun, doon po ako nanggagaling no, doon sa fact na parang languages are paradigms no, to view the world. No, so mas lumalawak yung pagtingin natin, mas lumalawak yung pangunawa natin sa mundo, no? Mas lumalawak yung worldview natin. So I guess it actually develops, it improves critical thinking po. Hindi lang sa mga bata but to speakers in general. Yeah.
Thank you, Ma'am Pray. We're nearing the end of our Q&A today. No? So after siguro, I have two more lined up here. No? But if you still have questions, we can entertain at least two from the chat box. So I'll ask the fourth to the last question. And it's about English as a second language. ESL learners, for example. Bigla ko kasing naisip, like for example, si Ma'am Morcoso, she's from Bicol. For example, hypothetically, she would be teaching English as a second language. Mas advantageous ba, kunyari ang estudyante niya ay taga Bicol, tapos tuturuan niyang mag-English yung yung nasa taga Bicol. So she can use both Tagalog and Bicolano and then English obviously, no? Kumpara mo kung ang teacher ng Bicolano student ay taga Laguna, for example, na hindi marunong mag-Bicolano. Sa tingin mo ba, mas madaling matututo yung estudyante ng English kung ang teacher niya ay si Ma'am Marcoso instead of, for example, me. Kasi she can code switch ng maraming alam, one more language than I can. Kasi ako hanggang Tagalog lang.
Okay, thank you Sir Gerard dun sa question. Actually, hindi naman siya usapin ng kung gaano karami ang alam na wika nung teacher. But actually, anong wika yung alam nung teacher? Kumbaga, kagaya ni Ma'am Jessie, if she speaks Bicol, and Bicol is the language of the students, then of course, siya talaga yung better na speaker or na teacher to teach the students English. Kasi yun nga parang ang hinahanap natin dito ay yung common ground, no, between the students and the teacher. So it doesn't really matter kung, para sa akin, no, hindi siya gaanong nagma-matter kung gaano karaming wika yung itinuturo mo. Kasi ang goal natin dito ay maging auxiliary, makatulong dapat yung L1 ng bata sa pagkatuto ng English or nung L2, no. Kagaya nga nung sinabi kanina, minention ko kanina na kinote ko from Bernardo, no, yung L1 natin, nagiging possible siya na scaffold, no, para matuto tayo lalo dun sa L2. So ang nagma-matter dito for me ay yung first language talaga or yung common language ng teacher at saka ng student.
Okay. Thank you. Kasi iniisip ko, di ba dito sa Light program, we also teach Japanese students English. I'm thinking, if a teacher who also knows Nihongo, for example, like kunyari ako, English lang, tapos estudyante ko Japanese. Tapos kunyari ikaw, Ma'am Prey, kaya mo English and Nihongo, won't they have an easier time with you? Kung ang target language ay English, hindi ba mas kayang mag-code switch? Ikaw. So parang mas madali kang maintindihan. Parang ganun.
Oo. Mas maximize natin yung benefit ng code switching sa language learning with a teacher who speaks the same language as the students. So kung common yung L1 nila, yeah, that would really be more beneficial and helpful for the students.
Okay. And si Ma'am Marcosa, go ahead na.
Hi, share ko din kasi like back in 2005, I worked in Cambodia. In an international school there. And at night, I teach Cambodian students who really want to speak English. Like I teach, kasi nga, parang hindi Khmer or hindi Cambodian yung first language ko. Like my first language is Filipino. English is just my second language. And Cambodian is like 0. So what the school director did was like to give me a translator. Para siyang teacher assistant. It helped, but parang mas mahirap kasi like yung vocab niya is quite different from my vocab. So what I did was I studied the language, but I studied the colloquial or yung conversational Cambodian nila, but not really like the Khmer language because it's quite complicated. But did I regret of studying the colloquial language? No, it really helped me a lot in teaching this Cambodian kids English. Parang mas nakatulong nga yun. And then I did not need a teacher assistant after like 2 months. Kasi mas kaya ko na like first hand to speak with them. Yung parang same level kami. Sabi nga ni Ma'am Precious, like same ground. So like we met halfway or minsan pag like yung mga first tries nag-picture pa ako or nag-drawing ako ng illustrations. Pero mas nakatulong talaga of like when I learned their language. So for 5 years na nagtuturo ako ng ESL sa Cambodia, it really helped them. And parang very thankful nga sila that I studied their language first before me teaching them what they are there. Parang kung ano yung purpose nila is to learn English. Pero ako, nag-learn muna ako ng Cambodian to help me teach them English. So sa akin, code switching is already parang ano na siya, existing na siya noon pa. Ano lang natin siya parang as translator. Pero ako, like, I code switch. Like, I do English and then I switch it, parang nag-switch ako sa Cambodian for more understanding. But definitely I switch again to English because that's the objective, like for them to be able to at least learn and speak a
Mhm.
few sentences in English. So yun po, like kaya sa akin, sabi ko nga dito sa chat box, we teachers, we know what works for us.
Mm.
What we know what works for us or what doesn't work. So at the end of the day, kung halimbawa na achieve mo yung goal mo sa araw na yon, kung na-meet mo yung mga objectives mo today, then it's fine. And then kung hindi, why not think of other ways that might work the next day or the other days to come. So yun lang po. Code switching is really parang a tool for us language teachers, most especially sa panahon ngayon, like 2 years na nag-module yung mga bata. So suddenly they came in face to face and madaming struggling. So code switching is kind of my best friend nowadays, like sa beginning ng school year namin today. But I know that we can get by in the few months to come. Ano lang, we are giving the kids some time to adjust. And of course, we are also giving ourselves as teachers time to adopt na rin. Kasi nga, 2 years na walang pasok eh. So, like suddenly, ayun yung mga bata, di ba? Like, noon, module lang. So, yun. Yun lang po. Masyado nang mahaba, Ma'am Precious. Thank you very much. Thank you po.
No problem, Ma'am Jessie. Thank you so much for sharing your very rich experiences. No, salamat, Ma'am. Has made our conversation here much more rich. Ma'am Prey, would you like to comment before I ask my last question?
Yeah, so ayun, thank you po ulit kay Ma'am Jessie, no. So actually yung experience niya, yun talaga yung proof, Actual proof 'yan kung paano nakatulong yung code switching. Kasi yun nga, it's magiging mahirap talaga if for example yun na magturo si Ma'am for example ng English to Cambodians na hindi niya alam yung first language, no, wala silang common ground. So siguro yung paggamit din talaga nung L1 no nung mga bata or nung mga students, hindi lang siya nakakatulong para maka-reach out ka doon sa students to establish a relationship with them, pero doon sa language learning din mismo, no, doon sa process of language learning. Kasi minsan nga parang para mag-make sense halimbawa doon sa mga bata yung let's say new vocabulary in the target language, kailangan nila nung L1, 'di ba? So ano rin talaga may gamit din talaga yung L1 in learning a second language. So, yun, parang hindi lang siya dun sa, kung babalikan natin yung social linguistics of code switching, the motivations, hindi lang siya dun, but in the actual process of learning, may contribution din talaga yung paggamit natin nung L1. Kasi minsan din, no, for language learners, binebase din kasi nila yung pag inaaral nila ang grammar ng isang language, sometimes yung mga language learners, ibine-base nila doon sa L1 nila. Yon, ginagamit nila na basis, no, yung L1 nila just so they can understand ano ba yung structure nitong L2, ano ba yung structure let's say ng English as compared to yung native language nila like in Cambodia. So yon, kaya maganda rin talaga na merong auxiliary language. No, may wikang pantulong pag nagtuturo tayo ng second language.
Thank you, Ma'am Prey. I believe it's Khmer, no? Khmer. I don't know kung Khmer or Khmer, Cambodian language.
It's Khmer.
Khmer.
Opo.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to pick up on what Ma'am Marcoso said earlier about learning the colloquial terms and expressions, because this is an approach that I also picked up from my TESOL training. No? And parang the approach these days has been like that. If you're learning a new language, parang do approach it in the most practical sense. So, yung ano ba yung sinasabi? Like, di ba? Paano ba mga musta sa umaga? No? How do you say things? Giving out directions, for example, yung mga very practical expressions to use. And I would like to relate that to code switching in the sense when we do code switching in the classroom. So for like example, yung example mo kanina, Ma'am Frey, dun sa class mo na nag-send ka ng very late na message. Tapos parang 'di ba, you became less formal and became, I would imagine, no, ang impression sa akin, you became more accessible slash approachable slash kinder. No, parang medyo natatanggal yung distance from teacher student. Now, yung question ko is this, no, would you say that code switching not just helps in language learning, but learning in general? No, I'm asking for the benefit of faculty here who's teaching content technical courses, for example. No, like for example, if you do jokes, na may nakabanggit kanina, no, yung nagjo-jokes ka sa Tagalog, paano mo yun matatranslate? O yung, ikaw, Ma'am Prey, yung sinabi mo na papunta na tayo sa exciting part. Parang if you're going to be very strict about the medium of instruction, even jokes are kind of, you have to translate them. So parang nalulose yung pop culture reference. Tama ba that code switching helps the learner learn better in the sense na they become more relaxed? Na parang di ba ang hirap naman matuto kapag parang ang stiff-stiff mo, which is what formal English is. So parang pag magsasend ka ng letter sa chancellor, for example, it's so structured. Na parang dear, ganyan. Tapos, kaya talaga siyang format that is off-putting, no, for at least for students especially. Would you support that conclusion that it will help learners learn better?
Yes po, Sir Gerard, definitely, no. And actually, dyan nag-a-agree yung mga nabasa ko rin na recent studies on code switching sa mga content courses like math, like science. So, kung kanina, di ba, ang focus kasi natin is really just language learning. Pero dun sa mga studies na yun talaga, lumalabas that the students were really able to learn better kapag nagko-code switch, no, yung kanilang teachers. And generally, when they code switch, in class. So I would say, yeah, nakakatulong siya doon sa learning in general because tama yung sinabi nyo and nabanggit din natin kanina na with code switching kasi, no, the student becomes more relaxed at saka yung environment mismo, it becomes sabi ko nga, a non-threatening environment for learning in general, not just for language learning. Kasi yun nga, parang inside the classroom, there's always pressure, no? Ganun naman talaga, no? Especially sa mga medyo mas matatanda na natin na estudyante, like the college students or the high school students. But then, when we use code switching kasi yun nga, it invites more discussion, it encourages the student na kasali ka dito sa usapan, di ba? You're part of this class and yung mga sasabihin mo, your reactions, your feedback, they're all welcome. Even if yun nga, mag-code switch ka, that's okay. And then, so yeah, nag-agree ako doon and then gusto ko lang din mag-comment doon sa sinabi mo about yung colloquial na register, no? Actually, it's really going to be most useful para sa akin, no, kapag yun yung gagamitin natin, especially when we reach out to students. Kasi mahalaga rin na yung ginagamit natin ay nakabase sa linguistic reality natin.
Yeah.
No, how do we really talk to each other? 'Di ba? Hindi naman siya palaging formal English, especially like when our students talk to each other, 'di ba? Student to student. Or yun nga, parang gone are the days na kapag ang mga estudyante nakikipag-usap sa teacher, 'di ba, parang very formal. But then sa panahon natin ngayon, it's not the case, no. Hindi na tayo ganoon kasi nga even us, no, teachers, we adjust, no, to our students, no. We find different methods or strategies na not only magpapa-relax sa kanila, not only yung makakapagpa-redefine ng speech situation or ng situation in general, but yung makakapag-foster talaga nung learning in general. So, yun, sinusuportahan ko din yun, no, yung idea na gamitin din natin yung colloquial, no, kasi yun nga, times have changed, no, hindi naman na tayo pinapressure into, like for example, talking to our teachers in a very straight na English, bawal tayo mag-code switch, bawal yung mga colloquial terms. Wala na tayo doon sa ganun eh. So, tingnan na natin ngayon, ano na ba yung linguistic reality? How do we really talk to each other? Yun. So, at least kapag ganun, mas makaka-relate sila eh. Mas makikita ng mga estudyante yung sarili nila doon sa itinuturo natin na language. And it also becomes more accessible then to them. Yun, mas nagiging din siya, non-intimidating in a way. So yes, yun po.
Thank you, Ma'am Prey. Before we end our Q&A, gusto kong basahin yung shinare ni Ma'am Jerilyn dito na the limit of your language is the limit of your world. That's from Wittgenstein. Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for the Q&A. I return the screen back to our host, Wine Rivas.
Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in our discussion. We got to see different points of view regarding our topic, and we're able to connect them to different contexts thanks to your questions and also manifestations as well. Thank you, Sir Gerard, for moderating our session. And of course, big thanks to Ma'am Precious for answering the queries of our participants. Congratulations po on giving such an insightful lecture. And since we're in the topic of language, I can't help but be reminded of the Light Programs webinar. We had it last August. If our topic today is about code switching and language classes, ayun naman po ay ang paggamit ng wikang Filipino sa pananaliksik. I think in both topics, they're both great in tackling different dynamics in the classroom and our teachers and students' relationship with language. So if you want to check out that webinar, we've uploaded it on our Facebook page. And if you want to revisit this webinar again, di pa tapos, but i-revisit nyo lang. We'll also be uploading it there soon. Now, for the next part of our program, we want to show our appreciation, of course, to Ma'am Prey. Next slide po, please, sir. Thank you. We award this certificate to Ma'am Precious Sara Añoso for imparting her knowledge and expertise as a research speaker to the participants of code switching in language classes and related conversations, given this 19th of September 2022 in the University of Philippines, Los Baños. Thank you so much po, Ma'am Prey. Once again, congratulations po. And then for our participants, kindly fill out the evaluation form to receive your certificate of participation. The link to the form will be sent through our chat box. Pakiabangan na lang po ito. Ayan, nasend na po ni Ate Cindy. Please expect your certificates to arrive after a minimum of 5 business days. Thank you so much. Now, to close our program, may we call on the Light Programs Coordinator, Assistant Professor Christine Adalia.
Afternoon. Thank you, Wine. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Nakakatuwa, no, ang palitan ng kuro-kuro natin ngayong hapon. Ang daming ideas coming from our participants, ang daming questions and sharing. So, nakakatuwa. Very timely ang webinar natin, lalo pa ngayon na mainit ang issue sa paggamit ng wikang Filipino at mother tongue sa ating education system. So, before we close this webinar, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dean Maribel Janicio Sese for gracing the event with her message earlier. Thank you, ma'am, for your unwavering support in the initiatives of the Light program. To our speaker, Ma'am Precious, thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise in today's webinar. Your insightful lecture on the 3 perspectives on code switching in language classes and related conversations allow us to better understand the motivations in code switching among learners, its effects in attaining target proficiency in the language, and the role of teachers in learners' code switching practices. I especially like what Ma'am Precious said, that we have to look at the linguistic realities, no? What is happening in the classroom? Because when we do that, we can create better learning environments for our students. So thank you, Ma'am Precious. Sa susunod po ulit, sana. I also want to thank, of course, Light Assistant Coordinator, Sir Gerard, Light Admin Staff, Miss Cindy, our intern, Wine, for making this webinar possible. And of course, all our participants who attended this event, thank you for sharing your time with us this afternoon. And we hope that this webinar sheds some light on the use of code switching in our classrooms. Again, thank you everyone and keep safe. Wine, I give the screen back to you.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Ten. Again, a reminder to please don't forget to fill out the evaluation form to receive your certificates. The link is in our chat box already. Now, next slide po, please, sir. Thank you so much. On behalf of the Light Program team, I'd like to thank you all again for coming to our webinar today. We hope you learned a lot and enjoyed it just as much as we have. Again, don't forget to use our official hashtag UPLB-CAS Light, if you want to share your experience online. Follow and visit us on our official Facebook page as well, because we still have so much more in store for you guys. Ngayon, bago po tayo maghiwa-hiwalay lahat, picture taking naman po muna tayo. If you could turn on your cams, please do so, so that we'll see your beautiful faces here on the screen. Hi po! Hi sa inyo pong lahat. Thank you so much for coming. Si Ate Cindy, our admin support, will be the one to take the picture. Ate Cindy.
Yes po, okay po. Smile po tayo. Kakount na po ako. 1, 2, 3. Smile po. Sa next panel naman po tayo po. Okay po. Count 1, 2, 3. Another one po. Wait lang po ah. Yan po. Pangatlong panel na po. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Thank you po.
Thank you so much. Ayan,
Thank
naka-3
you,
panels tayo.
everyone, for attending.
Once again, thank you so much for attending Code Switching and Language Classes and Related Conversation. This has been your host, Wine Rivas. Maraming salamat po. Goodbye and God bless po sa lahat. Thank you po.
Thank you po sa lahat.
Thank you po
Thank
sa
you for
lahat.
attending. Sa susunod po ulit.